My name is Bill Blazowski. I live in St. Petersburg and have been active on my condo association board and on an organization in our immediate area where many associations share information and coordinate their activities. It's called the Alliance for Bayway Communities, or ABC. The ABC started in 2012. It began with representatives of 8 associations that gathered to compare work practices and cost information. In fact, we first called ourselves the benchmarking group. The ABC has grown to just under 50 associations along the Pinellas Bayway, as shown in this chart. You may have passed through our area on the Pinellas Bayway on your way to Fort DeSoto Park or to St. Pete Beach. We now have a resident population of about 10,000 people. We now have 3 areas of activity. As noted before, we share information on best practices, costs for many common needs, and experiences that we've had with contractors and consultants. Second, we take advantage of our buying power, such as negotiating a bulk agreement with our cable provider that offers significant savings to associations in our area. And third, we work with city, county, and state representatives to be sure they understand our needs. That last activity is what we will address in this video. In the recent past, our advocacy focus has involved a range of issues, and 4 of them are shown on the next chart. If you've been involved with your association for a while, these examples may be familiar to you. Other interests in Tallahassee tried to pass new rules that would have increased estoppel fees, resulting in significantly increased costs to associations during real estate transactions. Legislation was introduced that would have required associations to use attorneys for administrative work being done without issue by property management staff. We work with legislators to increase the Florida Insurance Guarantee Association maximum payment to associations should their insurance carrier become insolvent. The increase was from $100,000 to $200,000 per unit. Short-term rental interests have tried to introduce legislation that would allow an owner to ignore rental restrictions in their documents. In some cases, in these examples, there was broad interest and an organized initiative to explain our position and communicate our needs to legislators. The common denominator in all of them is that each initiative included significant communication from citizens in associations to their legislators. We have with us today Travis Moore of Moore Associates. He represents a number of organizations which have interest in homeowner association and condo association legislation, and he's been very helpful to the ABC in the past. Travis, could you start by giving us an idea of your work and how it impacts legislation in Tallahassee?
Well, thanks, Bill. Yes, my name is Travis Moore, and I represent Community Associations Institute for Service Residential and other interests, and try to help magnify the voice of those that live in common interest ownership communities, of which Florida now has more people living in associations than any other state in the country. We have half of our population living in some type of common interest ownership housing, and so that voice is important. I'll say that the lawyers and the insurance agents and the short-term rental folks, whoever it is that we might be not seeing eye to eye with in Tallahassee, or trying to derail some of the things that they're pursuing, their voice is being heard, and their voice, they use their voice, and they're unified in how they speak. And it's just as important for associations to have that same unity of message and purpose.
Maybe you could give us an example of where associations have been effective at influencing what Tallahassee decides, and probably a good example of that would be where we stand on short-term rentals.
Sure. Over the last few years, like the number one issue that associations have faced, if you talk to any, whether it's a small HOA in Ocala or a large condo in Miami Beach, the number one issue has been short-term rentals, and how they impact the lifestyle and the community that association has developed. We have for years tried to get the legislature to understand that the rules that are put in place by a community are very democratic. That's their rules that they have adopted regarding rental restrictions, and that they should be protected. They're a contract with the residents and the owners. The legislature has now listened to that. Throughout this whole campaign season that we just came through, we talked to many legislators and many candidates, and universally the understanding was, well, we're not going to do anything. I wouldn't vote for anything. I would not support anything that has the impact of changing what an association can do with their own rental restrictions community. So that's a victory that it's been long in coming, but it's something that when all of those communities spoke together with, and we had presidents coming up, we had residents coming up, the legislature listened. 2021 legislature will have a number of issues that are just front and center for them to deal with. As you know, it's going through COVID and what that has done to not only the public health of Floridians, but also to the health of our economy. The economy is based on people coming here and gathering and visiting, and that is not happening. So the legislature, which will convene, they'll start committee meetings in January, have committee meetings January and February, and then the legislature starts in March 2nd, and will go until the very end, April 30th this year. And during that time, they're going to be focused on the unemployment it has, filling a hole in our budget, and dealing with a number of issues that are public health related issues front and center. As it regards to associations, the number one issue that we're hearing that association members have, again, across the spectrum from Destin to Jacksonville and all points in between, is insurance and the rate increases that they're getting for a variety of reasons. Very active storms, litigious environment that's out there. A lot of lawsuits, frivolous in nature, are being brought against associations and their carriers, and that's just driving up the cost. And so I think insurance will be the number one issue in the association space that the legislature can focus on. I think that's where you're going to see their focus. Every community association has a senator, House member that represents that district, and it is vitally important for associations to reach out to them and speak to them. You know, Senator Thurston in Fort Lauderdale on the insurance committee, Senator Roussan, also from St. Petersburg, on the insurance committee. Senator Boyd chairs the insurance committee from the Bradenton, Sarasota area. They all, there's associations that they represent. So while it's important for you and for ABC and others to be communicating directly to them, and now with email, Zoom meetings, it's, I think, easier to do so. It's also important for each of those communities to be talking to their own legislator, because it makes a difference.
As Travis mentioned, the legislative process at the state level involves many competing interests trying to steer legislation in their favor. We need to do that as well. But at this point, we're outgunned by interests that sometimes ask for changes that negatively influence us. And that can happen even though association residents together represent more than half of Florida's population. Here's what we can do. First, get associations in your area together. The bigger the better, and that will impact city and county matters as well as state issues. Second, have your residents write and email legislators on the issues that are important to association residents. And finally, consider involvement in statewide advocacy efforts. On that last matter, a group of property management company CEOs called the CEOMC is working to start an organization that will promote the specific interests of associations. That activity will coordinate on the issues of importance, keep associations informed, organize communications to legislators, and have an important lobbying presence in Tallahassee. When you hear about this initiative, please consider joining. We have a common interest, and it's pretty simple. We association residents want to be treated fairly. If we collectively express our needs, they will be addressed. Thanks very much for listening.